Welcome to Fill the Void podcast, where we discuss unhealthy human habits caused by the society of consumption. Welcome back to Fill the Void podcast. Today, we're honored to have Mark Paisant, a certified personal trainer, host of the Relatively Normal and 6amrun.com podcasts. Mark shares his journey with ADHD, anxiety, and depression, breaking the silence around mental health. As an advocate for therapy and fitness, he emphasizes their combined power in navigating life's challenges. Join us for an inspiring conversation as we explore Mark's story and his mission to end the stigma surrounding mental health. Welcome, Mark. How are you?
I am great. Thank you so much for having me on your show. I really appreciate it.
No, it's a pleasure to have you. Mark, first of all, I want to ask you, could you take us back to where it all started? How's your story? Where do you come from? And with the most detail as possible.
Wow. So where did it start? So, I was, like I said before the show, I was born in New Orleans, Louisiana, and moved to the Atlanta area when I was young. And honestly, I had a pretty good childhood. Two parents, a brother, a sister, played sports, went to good schools. And, all through my teenage years, I always felt like I had to mask who I really was. I had to mask my feelings and just, I didn't know what that was. Like, you're growing up, you're a teenager, you don't know what any feelings really, you think you know the world, but you really don't.
Yeah.
And, really in college was my first stint with therapy and with cognitive behavioral therapy. And it was because I played soccer, and I was part of a team with a bunch of guys who were really good, of course. They're the best players on their team in high school, and just like I was. And I got there, and I didn't feel at home. I didn't feel like myself. I felt like I had to continually try to be something I wasn't.
How old were you there exactly?
Yeah, at this time I was 18 years old. And to this day, I can't tell you what made me go into that therapist's office, but it was on campus. I went, and it was a total shift in thinking for me. It was really weird to have somebody just listen to you and not judge you and just want to know your story and want to be there for you and help guide you without any agenda. So that was my first stint. I think I went for 9 weeks, and it kind of changed my perspective on school, on not having to be anybody but myself. And it helped me move forward. Now, as I've gone through college and graduated, I haven't really worked on anything since then. So I still have these feelings, which I'm literally masking with laughter and being funny and being the loudest guy in the room and being the guy that makes everybody laugh. But at this time, things were just festering inside of me, and I did this thing which a lot of people do, where I just, whenever I felt bad or depressed or down, regardless if it was for any external internal reason, I just told myself I shouldn't feel this way.
Yeah.
I did that a lot. You shouldn't. Why do you feel this way? Come on, you have you have everything you need, everything you want. Why should you feel this way?
Instead of embracing the
Exactly.
emotions.
Correct.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and I probably did that for most of my teenage years and most of my 20s, where I literally, every time I got to a point where any person would feel bad or down or sad or sorry or frustrated, I would just continue to tell myself, put on a smile, put on a happy face, and just power through it.
Yeah, and because what you're saying, it's totally, I can resonate with so many things that you're saying. First of all, because I used to play field hockey in the national team, and I know what all of that life is about and what happens before, after, etc. And being vulnerable in the world we live in, it seems like people relate being vulnerable as being weak. So we are always trying to mask any emotions because we think that is showing us ourselves as weak.
That
So it's
was
very
me.
important what you're saying.
Yeah, that was me on the soccer team. That was me because, it was a very masculine, macho group of guys. It's like you don't show emotion. You get out there, you do
Yeah.
what you're supposed to do, and then you go out at night and try to, get the girls and have drinks and do it all over again next week. And that never was me, but I was trying to become that person to fit in.
Yeah.
And it stayed with me until my 20s. And I get to a point where I'm starting to get addicted to food, addicted to sugar. I gain over 100 pounds, and instead of masking stuff with my jokes and wit, now I'm masking it with food.
Yeah.
So I'm getting bigger, I'm getting unhealthy, and mentally I'm going downhill to a point where there was one night where I was driving in my company vehicle outside of Washington, D.C., and I was at a dead end job. I didn't have a lot of money. I was in debt. I was eating too much. Just the perfect storm of bad
Yeah.
things happening. And I thought to myself, I could just turn this vehicle into oncoming traffic. And at that point, someone has to listen to me. If I survive,
Yeah.
I have I can just do it right now. And it was like 9 o'clock at night. It was dark, busy highway, and I was like, and I was seconds away from doing it. And thank God I didn't. But at that moment, I was like, I have to get help. Like I have to get
Yeah.
help. Um, so I like to tell that story just because people. I mean, I don't like to tell it, but I want to share it because there's so many people out there who think they're alone, who
Yeah.
think no one's there to listen to them, and people want to listen, people want to help. So that's where I kind of started my therapy journey and began kind of the healing process and the process of becoming being able to become more vulnerable.
And yes, remarkable story, Mark. Thank you for sharing. That's why I have this podcast because I love when people share their stories of whatever problems they had and how they overcame it because, you know, we need to bring to light these topics that nobody wants to talk about because people feel uncomfortable. And in reality, we all go through the same things, but like people feel ashamed to talk about this. So thank you, first of all. And second, what does healing for you mean? How was that process for you? What was the first thing that you started working with your therapist? And how was that process? That process?
So I have to say this because the first therapist that I went to after what I just explained was a person that we didn't click at all. Like we after the third session, he was like, "I guess that's all the time we have. Good luck to
Yeah.
you." And it almost turned me off to therapy until I got to a point at a new job I had, and I know I'd had a fight with my mom, and I was in such a terrible headspace that I'm like, I have to try again. Like this can't be it. Like this can't be all that life has to offer for me. Like
Yeah.
I want to try. And thank God there was a therapist named Dr. Nedler in Virginia that he to this day we still keep in touch, and this is 15 years ago, 16 years ago. And I remember talking to him, and he just looks me just dead in my eyes, just like I'm looking at you now. And he just says, like, I can see like how hurt you are. I can see how much work we need to do. And it's like, finally someone
Yeah.
sees it.
Yeah.
And we worked on and off together for 10 to 12 years. And he was the first person that used the words depression and anxiety. Like I knew I was sad. I knew I wanted something better, but he used those words with me. And it was weird. It was like almost like a gunshot going off that when he used those words, it's like, no, I mean, I'm just sad. Like I'm just going through something. And it was finally where he was like, listen, it's okay. Like literally, it's okay. Like we
Yeah.
can work on this together.
How important it is what you're mentioning of, first of all, having self-awareness to be
Mhm,
able to see the thing,
mhm.
and then the acceptance, right? Because without us accepting it, it's impossible to be able to embrace a change.
Right. And it's not, it's between can't and won't because I think a lot of us can. I'll speak for myself. Looking back, I really felt like I could do it, but I was almost afraid to do it
Yeah.
because I don't think like let's not even sugarcoat it. Like it takes work. It takes work. It takes time. It takes patience. It takes knowing that this is not going to be an overnight thing. It's not going to be in 1 week thing. It's going to be a progress that's going to teach you better ways to cope with the triggers in your life. So the the part that was the hardest for me was the moment that I realized like I had to accept who I was. Like
Hmm.
for my entire life, I wanted to be this person, and I wanted to be this soccer player, and I wanted to be this type of man, and I wanted to be this and that. And it's like you are who you are, and
How interesting
yeah,
what you're saying,
yes,
because of course,
mm,
I even myself,
mhm,
I'm thinking like right now, I'm always looking at what I want to
mhm,
be instead of focusing what I am,
yes.
right? And making that better.
Mhm. And it's don't get me wrong, it's tough. Like this is like this kind of conversations are the ones I like to have because it's hard. Anybody listening right now who is maybe in the point where like, yeah, I hear what they're saying and I kind of feel the same way, but you know, that's just me trying to be a better version of that's just me trying to get ahead in life. That's just me trying to we can listen. We are the best at telling ourselves what we want to hear at a certain moment. Like
Yeah.
we will say, "Oh no, you know what? I can do this one time. It's okay."
Yes.
Or it's fine. Like Mark, I know you did all that work and you did your best to stay on track, but this one it's okay. And it's like we will be our 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 best worst enemies.
Exactly.
And that's why I'm such an advocate for therapy and finding the right therapist because they are trained to make us look inside and question who we are, why we do the things we do, why do we cause harm to ourselves, and they help us kind of break that mold and rebuild ourselves. And I mean, I that's exactly what happened with me.
Yeah, how incredible, because
Mm,
basically I did therapy more than 10 years, and therapy basically allows us or even teaches us, makes us go into the void, because we all have this void.
yep.
It's like our proper and part of our existence as human beings. There's always this feeling of emptiness, and we are like in this search to feel whole.
Hmm.
But in reality, that emptiness, it's like the motor for us to do more things.
Yes.
So incredible. And I'm pro therapy as well,
Mm.
like you. So, how does the story continue?
So, at this point, I'm working on my mental health a lot. Like I'm not really changing much physically. I'm not really
Yeah.
working out. I'm still not eating great. Um,
And that's
but
okay too,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
That's
exactly. Yeah,
okay.
yeah, exactly. There's nothing in my life I would go back and change. Everything has made me who I am today. So there's nothing I would go back and change. But um, I remember I started like I was really anxious about my first few therapy sessions, but then I got to a point where I was looking forward to them, and I was looking forward to like having a conversation, dissecting things that were triggering to me. And there was one time that I had finished my therapy session with him, and I had started back with him again because um, I had checked all these boxes in my life. I'd gotten married, had kids, lost the
Mm-hmm.
weight, um, But I lost the weight in a way where I wasn't really thinking about mentally. I was just thinking about I'm running every day, running every day. I'm looking at the scale. That's all I'm doing is looking at the
Yeah.
scale. And I felt empty. Like, and I was like, this doesn't make sense. Like, I've gotten healthy.
Mm-hmm.
I've bought a house. I have a good job. I mean, I'm checking all the boxes, and something's still not right. I just don't feel like myself. And I called my therapist, and I remember crying on the phone in my office because I was so frustrated because I'm like, what else do I need to do? Like, what else do I need to do? And we started therapy again, and he asked me straight up. He was like, "Did you think losing weight would automatically make your depression or anxiety or any feelings go away?" And I was honest with him. I was like, "Yes, that's." I literally thought
Yeah.
that's what I thought. He's like,
Yeah.
"No, they're connected, but they're not. One doesn't follow the other." And there was one particular day I went into his office. Sun was out, birds were chirping. I had a good job. Everybody seemed to be happy but me, and I can't tell you what was wrong. To this day,
Yeah.
I can't tell you what was wrong. And he asked me, and this is what I loved about him. He wasn't afraid to challenge me. He
But that's the
asked,
worst feeling when
yeah,
you know
it was,
something's wrong, but you
yeah,
don't know what it
I don't know
is.
what it is.
Yeah.
And he says, Mark, like, what? Tell me what you want. Finally, he's like, you know what? We've been through a lot of this, but tell me literally what you want. And I said, Doc, I just want to be normal. Like, I just want to be normal, like everyone else outside who's laughing, joking, giggling, having a good time, enjoying the sun, enjoying each other. Like, I want to be normal like them. And he finally broke it down. He's like, you are normal. Like, this is your normal. It's
Yeah.
relative. And he's like, you just have specific triggers that we have to work on your coping mechanisms. And that stuck with me. Like, that stuck with me to this day. And that's why I named my podcast Relatively Normal,
You
because
know
of
that
that conversation. Yes.
I've repeated that quote,
Mhm.
exact quote you're saying,
Yeah.
many times as well. I was
Because
like, I want to
it's
be
true.
normal.
It's
Yeah.
true. It's literally true.
Yeah, but why do we think in our heads like everyone is normal? They're having like, oh, that person is eating this sandwich and having a good time
Mhm.
talking with their friends, and we are not like that.
Yes.
But in reality, like that's just in our heads.
It's totally in our heads. And the even if you take it one step further, we have no idea what's in their heads. We have
Yeah.
no idea what they're going through. We have no idea if they just got a bad, prognosis and they have 6 months to live and they're just living there. Like, we don't know what's going through
Mm-hmm.
their head or in their life, but we're still trying to be like, I want to be like them. They look happy.
Yeah.
They look,
Yeah.
and it's like I had to change my perspective and start focusing on me and what I affected versus
Mm-hmm.
what everyone else was affecting.
Yeah. Super interesting. And what were the first things that made you change the perspective? How were you able to do it?
The first thing I did, well, the first, and I'm going to say the first and the most important thing I did was start to be nice to myself and treat myself like a friend. The
Hmm.
first episode of my podcast was Be a Friend. That's the name of it. And if you're like me, I'm an extrovert. I love people pleasing. I love making other people laugh. I just do it.
Mm-hmm.
And then at the drop of a hat, my therapist was like, so, what do you do for yourself? And it's like, what do you mean? I don't do anything for me. I do everything for everybody else. And he's like, saying it out loud, don't you see how detrimental that is? Like, don't you see if you keep pouring from a cup, it's going to run out and you're not putting anything back in it? And I was like, and he did this one exercise with me, and he says, if one of your buddies, one of your friends, one of your coworkers, even someone you don't know does something stupid in front of you, are you going to laugh at them? Are you going to make fun of them? Are you going to tell them how stupid they are, and how are you going to bash them? I'm like, of course not. Like, no, I would never do that. He's like, how do you talk to yourself when you make a mistake? And I was like,
The
oh my
worst.
God. I'm like, oh man, you got me. Like,
Yeah.
I say the worst stuff to myself, or I used to. Let me
Mm-hmm.
rephrase. I used to say the worst
Yeah.
stuff to myself, and he's like, that those words mean something. He's like, those words mean something. The way somebody else would feel if you said bad things to them, you feel the same way. And that, honestly, that was the biggest change that I made. And it's still, I still slip up sometimes when I'm off the cuff and I'm like, oh, Mark, you idiot. Like, Mark, I'm not that nice. Like, I say a lot of bad
Mm-hmm.
words to myself, which I won't say
Yeah.
on your show. Um, but that was the first step. And then, as you go through this process, so somebody who's never been in authentic, like really good therapy that's connected with them, they may not understand this, but it gets to a point where you start to feel a trigger coming on. Like you're like,
Yeah.
I've read this story, I know this story, and it's the possibility of putting me into a bad place, making me upset. And if you go a step further with that, you don't go away from it.
Yeah.
You go into it because you're built now to cope with it correctly. So that's just a few of the things. It's actually, I love talking about it because I want people to know, like, you don't have to veer away from anything. You don't have to try to stay away from the world. You don't have, there's not that
Mm-hmm.
like, live in the moment and really take it all in, because that's how you grow as a person.
Yeah. And yeah, it's very important what you're saying, the part of like when this urge or trigger turns on, there's like signals that our body sends
Hmm.
us. Each
Yes.
person has different signals. So the important thing is just to know yourself.
Yes.
Um, and also in America, there's a lot of stigma around therapy, right? I come from Argentina and it's very common in my country, but when I moved to United States, I saw that like mental health here is like a total different game because nobody has done therapy. It's like a new thing.
Like, it's weird to say it out loud, isn't it? Like, it's weird when you
Yeah.
think about it. It's like, wait a second. Like, why is there, like, I'm taking the time out of my busy day to sit on a couch, to sit in a chair, to look at a computer and better myself and make sure I'm a better human being, a better husband, father, cousin, brother, son, all that stuff. I'm taking an hour out of my week, and that there's a stigma around that.
Yes.
That's when you look at it in that way, because I'm very pragmatic. My brain likes practical things and
Mm-hmm.
pragmatism. And when you think about it that way, you're like, that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
But in in this culture we live in, a lot of us have this thought process that we need to fix ourselves and we shouldn't be affected by this, and
Yeah.
oh, that's no, why, that shouldn't offend you. Like, you come on, let's go, man up, let's do this. And it's like, wait a second, like, you're invalidating every one of my feelings that I have right now.
Yeah.
Every one of them. It's like, last time I checked, I have a brain. So that means I could be sad, I could be happy, I can be joyful, I can be, whatever emotion I want to be.
Yeah.
But the only one that we all seem to universally accept is positive emotions.
Yes.
And
Completely.
once somebody has a feeling of frustration, take for instance, at a job where someone is
Mm-hmm.
nervous about their first day or nervous about an interview or nervous about something, a lot of times we blow them off and we say, "Oh,
Yeah.
don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. You're fine. I believe in you. You'll make it." And it's like,
Yeah.
wow, that doesn't help.
Like that
That
is,
doesn't
yeah,
help.
that's everyone says these things in
Uh-huh.
every aspect of life. It's
Hmm.
like, no, you're fine. You're
You're
and
fine. You're good.
it's like a cynical, that's a sinister positivity
Hmm.
a little
Yes,
bit,
correct. But
right?
what it is just that person doesn't have the tools, or they're not capable of starting that conversation. And it really is, it's easier than people imagine, but they don't, like, when someone walks up to you and says they're nervous about a first date, or they're nervous about, I got to meet with the boss tomorrow on this project. It's like they're being vulnerable at that moment to you.
Exactly.
They're telling you how they feel, and it does not help, or it does not add to the resolution if your response is so short and curt and cliche. Why not say, "Oh, do you want to talk about it? I have some time right now. Do you want me to call you tonight? Tell me what you're feeling right now. And those little words, that little sentences, they do so much for people. They do so
Yeah.
much.
Yeah. Completely agree. And in this feeling of emptiness that we were talking
Mm.
about and life and like existentialism, do you believe in something more powerful than us? What is your spiritual ways, practices, thinking? Do you
I,
have any?
I have been waiting for someone to ask me that, um, because we shy away from kind of that conversation. So I'd like to say right now that I don't know what I believe in, and I'm going to explain it to you because
Mm-hmm.
there is something in the universe that we can't see but affects all of us. There's something out there that's bigger, stronger, and more powerful than any of us. But um, in my view, it's something that has to do more with how we treat each other and how we treat our belongings and how we treat the earth and kind of the positivity we put out there. I really believe now energy in, energy out. I really believe what we put out in the world is what we're going to get back in. And
Yeah.
sometimes we'll be blessed to get better than what we put out, but it is what it is. So,
Yeah.
um, I'll be honest, I was raised Catholic Church.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of the stuff at an early age, I kind of questioned. I went to a private Catholic high school, and um, I did I did all the mass and the communion, and I did all that stuff, and I got to a point where I really started to question why faith is just something we believe or use so just out of the blue, just something we can use all the time. Why do you believe this? Oh, it's my faith. It's like there's things I see in the world that are real.
Mm-hmm.
There's racism, there's sexism, there's
Yeah.
xenophobia, there's all these things, there's glass ceilings for women, there's all these atrocities in the world that are real, which people fail to believe in or do anything about.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm supposed to believe in something off of just faith.
Yeah.
So I'm on a journey right now to kind of figure out where I'm at with that, and I'm really enjoying it. I really am
Yeah.
enjoying it because you know, if you talk to a Christian, you get one thing. Talk to a Buddhist, you get another. You talk to a Mormon, you talk to, anybody,
Yeah.
A Jewish person, a Muslim, anybody, and a lot of the stories have things that are similar, but they're also very different. And I think that's a beautiful thing because all of us have unique perspectives on the world. And I think I really like just getting into this journey I'm on now.
Yeah. And thank you for being like so open, and I like what you say that I'm also very open and love hearing different uh religions, different approaches to everything
Mhm.
and accepting all of it because
Right.
everything is fine. The problems come when people want to impose their beliefs on someone else.
That you said it. You see, yes. You said I will never ever have someone try to believe exactly what I believe in. Like
Yeah.
I don't think that's my place, and I think it's very disrespectful to a person in their journey. I don't know uh, as much about them as they know about themselves. So who am
Mm-hmm.
I to say this is what you need to believe in?
And I have a last question for you, and I think it's a very difficult question, but I love it.
Okay.
It's well, not difficult, but like we were talking about, you said, I married, I had children,
Hmm.
like you check the boxes in life. We are
Yeah.
like literally rats
Hmm.
running behind a cheese, right?
Hmm. Yes.
But so, how do you work or how do you think about this in your daily life? Like, what's the point of everything we do? You know what I mean? How do you deal with this? And what's
That
your approach?
yeah, so that used to be a question that I used to probably ask myself way too much. Like I always used to be that person. It's like, why am I always have that why behind something?
Mm-hmm.
And I've kind of changed my perspective on things. And instead of like asking the question, like, why, what is this for? Why are we here? Things like that.
Yeah.
I've shifted it to kind of just tell myself to live with purpose and live with it and do things with intent. So live with purpose,
Yeah, that's nice.
because here's the thing, like if I want to go out and better myself, either through education, through physical fitness, through mental fitness, emotional, spiritual fitness, all that good stuff, if I am always trying to answer the question why, I'm just focusing on the end product. I'm just focusing on the result.
So important.
The
Yeah.
the fun is in the process. And
Yes.
that was a shift I made, like literally not too, like a couple years ago. I'm in my 40s, so a couple years ago,
Mm-hmm.
I made this shift. And it totally changed how I look at life. It totally changed how I enjoy time with my family, how I enjoy time with my friends. And everything I
Living
do
in
in
the
life.
moment as well,
Yes,
right? Being
yes,
present.
correct,
Yeah.
correct. And it's a hard thing to do. It's something you have to work on. You have to
Yeah.
work on. You can't be just that person. You know what? I'm stopping everything I'm doing. I'm gonna live right now for the moment. This is me. This is who I am. Like, no, it doesn't work like that. You have to,
Yeah.
like, I'll give you a great example. I do one-on-one coaching, a lot of it with young
Mm-hmm.
kids who play soccer. And I was with a young kid yesterday who, fairly new to soccer, but has played a couple years. But we're working on just ways to finish, ways to kick the ball.
Mm-hmm.
And I was telling him to use his laces and toes down. He's like, "Oh, I've never kicked that way before," and blah, blah, blah. So we went through the motions a few times. He didn't get it. And finally, I stopped. I do this often, too. I do this
Yeah.
often with kids. I said, we can sit out here and I can give you drills and you can just do them for an hour and you can go home and I can get paid. Like, we can do that. I was
Mm-hmm.
like, but think about what I've asked you to do. Think about what part of the foot you want to hit the ball with. Think about where you want to hit the ball. Think about where you want the ball to go. Think about all of that as you're running up to the ball. Like, I know it's a lot, but think about it now, because you won't get it ingrained in your body unless you put the intentional, purposeful work in now. So think about
That's so
yeah,
wise.
what your body has to do to get your foot this way, to get your hip. Like, like, I know he's 12. I was like, I know it's weird, but think about all this stuff. And the next ball he kicks, it's perfect. It's literally perfect. And he stops and he has this big smile on his face. And I was like, see what you can do when you actually, like, put your mind the same thing happened with my daughter a couple nights ago, and she was jumping, like, we were hugging because she kicked the ball. Like, I was almost in tears on the soccer field, because, like, whatever you do in this world, if it means a lot, like, you can't just, like, go through the motions with it. You have to be into, how do I want this to sound? What words do I want to use? What do I need to educate myself with? What people do I need to know? Who do I have to surround? What time do I need to do it? Do I have to be up early? How much? Like, I know it sounds like a lot, but if you do it enough, I can't do things without intent now. Like, it's just it's ingrained in me now. Like,
Yeah.
when I do shows like this one, it's like, I want to be fully present. Phones off. I told my kids I'm on a call. The camera set up a certain way. My notifications are off. I'm on the correct Wi-Fi. I've read what
Exactly.
you've sent. It's like, I cannot do something and just jump on a call and say, "Hey,
And this is
yeah,
the answer to the why of everything. Instead of
yes,
us asking the question, this is the why, because
yes,
we'll
exactly."
do every little thing, and that's the purpose.
Correct. There you go.
I
Yeah, there you go. Exactly.
love it. I love it. Thank you so much, Mark. I really enjoyed this conversation. I think you're remarkable individual and like very, very wise person.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I had a
Thank
lot of fun.
you. Thank you for sharing all this wisdom with my audience.
No problem. I hope they got something out of it. I really do. And I want to say one last thing to everybody.
Yes, of course.
Like, you don't have to listen to a word I say. Like, you don't know me. I don't know you. You can listen to me and be like, he's got some good points, Pat. Or you could say, you know what? No, I don't like. It's not gonna. One, it's not gonna bother me. That's a one thing I've learned. And two,
Mm-hmm.
we need to blaze our own path, and we'll all figure it out on our own. So I just wanted to mention that before anybody goes out and says, I need to be just like Mark. Because remember, I talked about at the beginning, like I talked
Yeah.
about finding your own way. So I always like to mention that.
Yes. Thank you so much, Mark. It was a pleasure having you.
Thank you. I appreciate it.